This is the story of how I turned a family snub into a revenge so sweet it could have been served with whipped cream. My family's always been a knotted tangle of secrets, grudges, and unspoken rules, but I never imagined they'd cut me out completely. When I discovered I wasn't invited to the annual family reunion, I didn't waste time crying or begging for answers. I planned. I schemed, and I threw my own reunion right across the street to show them exactly what they'd lost by leaving me behind. It all began with a letter, one of those ostentatious embossed envelopes my cousin Seraphine loves to send. She's the self-proclaimed guardian of our family's legacy, always orchestrating these reunions at the old estate on Willow Lane. The letter arrived at my doorstep, but it wasn't addressed to me. It was for my neighbor, Mrs. Quillen, a sweet widow who'd moved in last year. She handed it over, her brow furrowed, saying it must have been a mistake. But when I tore it open, the invitation listed every family member's name: cousins, aunts, uncles, even Seraphine's pampered spaniel, Lord Percival. Everyone except me, not Ruby. I sat on my porch, the crumpled letter in my fist, staring at the estate across the street. The big house loomed with its ivy-draped walls, wraparound porch, and windows that glowed like judgmental eyes. I'd grown up there, raised by my grandmother after my parents died in a car accident when I was 6. I'd chased fireflies in that garden, memorized every creak in those oak floorboards, and painted my first clumsy watercolors in the attic. But after Grandma passed, Seraphine took over the estate, and she'd been freezing me out ever since. Why? Because I'd sold my share of the property to fund my art gallery downtown. To her, that was high treason. To me, it was survival, building a life on my own terms. The reunion was set for next Saturday, a week away. I could have called Seraphine, demanded to know why I'd been excluded, but that's what she wanted me groveling, proving I still cared about her approval. Instead, I decided to throw my own party, not just any party, a reunion so spectacular it would make hers look like a sad potluck in a church basement. I had 7 days to pull it off, and I wasn't about to waste a single one. First, I called V&L, my best friend and a caterer who could turn a carrot stick into a culinary masterpiece. She's a whirlwind of energy, with wild curls and a laugh that could wake a coma patient. When I told her the plan, she cackled. "Ruby, we're going to make them choke on their own deviled eggs," she said, already scribbling a menu of lavender-infused. Then there was Mariette, my florist friend with a gift for turning blooms into living sculptures. She vowed to transform my front yard into a paradise that would outshine Seraphine's manicured rose garden. My house, a cozy 2-story directly across from the estate, wasn't as grand, but it had heart. A wide lawn, a creaky porch swing, and a massive oak tree perfect for string lights. I spent days cleaning, painting, and borrowing tables from every neighbor who'd listened to my tale of betrayal. I hauled out my old easels to display photos of my chosen family friends, artists, mentors who'd been there when blood relatives weren't. By Friday, my place was ready. Fairy lights twinkled like stars. Mariette's flowers cascaded over every surface, and Vionel's food filled the air with scents of rosemary and citrus. I'd invited everyone I knew: artists in paint-splattered jeans, neighbors with kids and dogs, even Lorne, the barista from my favorite coffee shop, who promised to bring his entire extended family. I told them to bring their own stories, their own people. This wasn't just my revenge. It was a celebration of the family I'd built from scratch. Saturday morning, I watched from my window as cars rolled up to the estate. Seraphine's reunion was in full swing by noon, with her usual crowd, Aunt Corisande, who never shut up about her yacht, Uncle Theobald, who'd once borrowed my college savings and conveniently forgot to repay me, and Cousin Jaspin, who trailed Seraphine like a loyal puppy, nodding at her every word. Through the estate's big windows, I saw them laughing, clinking glasses, acting like they were the only family that mattered. My chest tightened, a familiar ache of being left out, but I shook it off. My turn was coming. At 3 p.m., my reunion kicked off. Fallion's band launched into a soulful cover of an old jazz standard, the kind Grandma used to hum while baking. Guests arrived in waves. Artists with sketchbooks, neighbors with homemade pies, Lorne with his cousins, aunts, and a great-uncle who told stories about his days as a sailor. Vionel's food disappeared faster than I could have dreamed, and Mariguette's flower arch became the backdrop for 100 selfies. My lawn was a living painting. Ruby's Revenge, acrylic on canvas, a masterpiece of defiance. Laughter filled the air, kids chased each other around the oak tree, and Thalion's music pulsed through the evening. Across the street, I caught glimpses of Seraphine's party faltering. Jaspin poked his head out the estate's front door, staring at my packed lawn. Aunt Corisande wandered onto the porch, her wineglass forgotten as she gaped at Thalion's band. Even Uncle Theobald, who never left a buffet table, crossed the street to see. By dusk, half of Seraphine's guests had defected. My yard was a sea of people, dancing, eating, and swapping stories about real family, the kind you choose, not the kind you're stuck with. Seraphine finally appeared, storming across the street in her pristine white dress, her face a mask of fury. "What is this, Ruby?" she demanded, hands on her hips, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I leaned against the oak tree, sipping a lavender cocktail. "Just hosting my own reunion, Seraphine. You know, since I wasn't invited to yours." Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish gasping for air. For once, she had no clever retort. The crowd around us quieted, sensing the tension. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "This is my family," I said, gesturing to the laughing, dancing people behind me. "They're here because they want to be, not because of some embossed invitation or old money they're chasing." She sputtered, her cheeks flushing red. "You're making a spectacle," she hissed. "You're embarrassing the family." "Embarrassing?" I laughed, and it felt good, like shaking off years of her judgment. "I'm celebrating. You're the one who decided I wasn't family anymore. I just proved you wrong." Before she could respond, Thaliel's band struck up a new song, loud and joyful, drowning her out. The crowd cheered, pulling me back into the party. Seraphine stood there, alone, as her own reunion emptied out. Jaspin was already swaying to the music on my lawn, a drink in hand. Aunt Corisande was deep in conversation with Mariguette about peonies, and Uncle Theobald was telling Lorne's great-uncle about his failed business ventures, oblivious to Seraphine's glare. As the night wore on, my reunion became something bigger than revenge. It was a mosaic of stories. Vionel talking about her grandmother's recipes, Lorne's cousin sharing tales of her travels, Thalion dedicating a song to his late brother. I moved through the crowd, listening, laughing, feeling like I belonged somewhere for the first time in years. My gallery, my art, my life, it was all here, in these people who showed up for me. Around midnight, I climbed onto a table, a microphone in hand. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice carrying over the crowd. "I didn't grow up with a big family, not really. But tonight, You've shown me what family can be. People who show up, who share their stories, who make you feel like you're enough. This is my reunion, and you're all invited, always. The cheers, I didn't need their approval anymore. I'd built something better, right here, in my own yard. It wasn't just revenge, it was redemption. And as I stood there, the morning light painting my lawn gold, I knew I'd never feel left out again.